What's up, everyone? Back for another beer review. But today is not just another beer review. No, it's not. It's a milestone beer review, and that's because today's review is the 2,500th review on the channel. Sounds crazy to even say that. When I first started my channel, little over 7 years ago, back on April 1st, aka April Fool's Day of 2018, I never thought I would get to this many reviews. I actually didn't have any thoughts of hitting any milestones. I was just like, you know what? I want to do beer reviews on YouTube, and I started my channel. And here we are, 2,500 reviews later, and I can't believe it. So I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I know I say this in all the milestone reviews. I know I say this in a lot of different vlogs and whatnot, and different milestone as far as like the subs go and whatnot. I want to thank each and every one of you. Whether you're somebody who is a daily viewer of the channel and comments every day, or somebody who checks in every couple months, I appreciate each and every one of you. Without you guys, I'm probably still not doing this. I mean, I love reviewing beers on YouTube, being a beer tuber, as they say, but I mostly care about the interaction and just talking about beer. And I think that kind of comes through with my reviews. I'm very passionate. This is a great hobby. I love it. And talking beer with you guys, whether it's in the comments section or DMs or whatever the case may be, that's what makes this fun. And if it wasn't fun, I don't think I'd be here a little over 7 years later and this many reviews. So it just had to be said that I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for the continued support, all the views, the subs, the comments. Like I said, more importantly, the comments. Those are the main things. So if you've been watching the channel for a while, please post a comment and let me know, especially if you are a lurker. I used to be a lurker when it came to BeerTube for the first couple of years of watching reviews. I would never comment, and I finally started to do so, and here I am reviewing beers many, many years later. So if you do watch the channel and you never comment, throw something in the comment section. Let me know, do you enjoy the channel, how long you've been watching, so on and so forth. Anyway, I want to do something special for today's review like I do with all my milestone reviews. So if you've been following the channel for a significant period of time, you know that when it comes to milestone reviews, I try to review something that is a memorable beer when it comes to my beer drinking history. Did that sound pretentious? It did. Is it? Definitely. But whether it's a macro lager that I have some kind of personal history with, or maybe a special beer I've always wanted to try, I always try to review something that is a memorable beer to myself. And I think today's beer definitely fits that category. So without any further ado, let's get into today's special milestone review. The beer that I'm reviewing today once again comes from the Kuhnhenn Brewing Company, and they're headquartered in Warren, Michigan. And this is their bourbon barrel-aged 4th Dementia, aka 4D or 4th D. And this is the 2024 vintage. So this is an old ale that is aged in bourbon barrels for over a year. It comes in at 13.5% alcohol by volume. No IBUs listed in time of review. And this bottle is approximately 6.5 months old. And I picked this one up at Halftime Beverage via halftimebeverage.com. So in the description box, I'll post a link to the beer mail unboxing video I did that contains all the goodies that I grabbed. And I picked up 31 beers in total, 7 of which were from Kuhnhenn, 3 cans, all of which I've already reviewed, and then 4 bottles. And this is the first of the 4 bottles. I'm pretty sure they're all barrel aged. And I'm reviewing this one first because of the milestone today, but because of my history with this beer. So if you want to just fast forward to the review, go forward probably about 2 or 3 minutes. You should be good to go. For the rest of you, let me tell you a little bit about this one. We got a story time with Joe. Shout out to Harry who mentioned that, I think it was about a week or 2 ago in one of the reviews. He's like, a story time with Joe. It is story time with Joe. So Kuhnhenn, I always thought Kuhnhenn was one of the more underappreciated and just one of those breweries that if you were in Michigan, you knew about, but if you're outside of Michigan, maybe not, when it comes specifically to their barrel-aged beers. Now, some of the beers that I reviewed recently, like their canned beers like Drippa, their Double Rice IPA, or their Imperial Creme Brulee Java Stout, fantastic beers, still fantastic beers to this day because I just reviewed them and they were still good. Now, as far as their barrel-aged beers, they've always been top-notch, and this one especially. So I first tried the base of this beer and the barrel-aged version back in 2013, courtesy of a very good friend of mine and former beer tuber, or I guess somebody who was a part of the beer tubing community, Ewart, aka Teku Murray. He was a beer tuber for like a couple months, but he always supported the Canadian beer tubers and some of the other bigger beer tubers as well. And he actually gave me both of the base and this barrel-aged variant back in 2013, and I fell in love with it. At that point, I hadn't had many old ales in my life. I love barley wines, but I didn't have many old ales. Old ales are very akin to barley wines. Big, high ABV, high octane beers, very malty, definitely a sipper. And I fell in love with the old ale because of this beer. So I love old ales and barley wines, especially English barley wines. Barrel-aged versions of them, my favorite to this day, probably my favorite styles. And so I love this so much so that in 2014 and 2015, I attended the Detroit Fall Beer Festival. And both years, I went to the Kuhnhenn Brewery. However, in 2014, I made another trip back in late December. I think it was like December 20th or 21st, and went to Kuhnhenn's Winter Solstice event. They put this on every year, mid to late December, and that's when they released this beer and a bunch of other crazy barrel-aged beers. Ewart and I went. We had a great time, and that was the first time I actually waited in line for a substantial period of time for a beer like this. And I got a whole case of beer. It was a fantastic experience, even though like I look back and I'm like, there's no way I'd ever wait that long in line again. It was like 20 degrees outside. I think we waited like 5 hours. It was insane. Nowadays, not so much, right? But I always like this beer. I have loved the different variants that they've come out with. The last time I had this or a variant was like 6 or 7 years ago, so I haven't had it in quite a while. So when I saw Halftime Beverage have this on their website, I was like, I have to grab them. They were pricey, but hopefully it's worth it. I've heard some people, and this is just some people over the past like 6-7 years, tell me that this beer and Kuhnhenn's barrel-aged game is not as good as it used to be, say 10-12 years ago. I guess we'll see today. I really don't know. So they do have a spiel on the back that says this batch of 4th D is aged for over a year. This ale has an assertive aged oak character, intense sweet caramel malt flavor and aroma, some toffee and toasted marshmallow-like character. Serve at 45 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit. I grabbed this out of my darker beer fridge. I keep it 54 degrees Fahrenheit, so we're right in the realm. I just love the label too. I know maybe not the label, like the font and everything, but just like the color scheme, right? You got black and gold or like a dark gray and gold, like the foil. Just pumped. So let me crack this one open and we'll rip this off here. Throw it over here like that. And we are going to pour it into the hashtag proper glassware. Ooh. It looks very murky. Shout out to Matt over at Massive Beer Reviews, who always says like he loves his old ales to look like, and this is me paraphrasing, but he would say brown dookie water. Brown doo-doo water. That tastes like foil. Good job, Joe. Anyway, what does this one look like? Well, in the hashtag proper glassware, it looks kind of weird because that logo is black, and the beer is a very dark brown, almost like root beer looking color to it. But that looks beautiful. 13.5%, insane. It changes each year, the ABV, but yeah, that looks awesome. No clarity, can't see through it. Very dark brown color. Has about a half to a third of finger of this really nice, like I'd say khaki colored head. It looks pretty creamy, but it is 13.5%, so I don't expect a big head. Even if I poured it aggressive, it probably fizz away to some degree. So yeah, let's get a nose. Dude, this just smells like all the confectionery, like Werther's Original, Cowtails, Bullseyes. It has a vanilla, caramel, like a sweeter dark chocolate. Definitely barrel here, and it's more spirit than just like vanilla and oak. It like has an actual like bourbon whiskey kind of vibe. Sugar daddies, sugar babies. Very rich caramel toffee, without question. They said marshmallow. I would just say a very pronounced vanilla. Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of like a dark fruit quality coming through, like kind of like a date. Raisin. Almost like a caramel. I don't know if I've ever had a caramel covered raisin. I probably said this before in reviews, but I'm so old, and this is the 2,500th review. But if there is a caramel covered raisin, that's kind of what this is. I will say that I don't remember the spirit itself being as boisterous as it is in the nose for this one, but I don't remember drinking this all that fresh. I had it on fresh at the brewery, and then when I ended up drinking those 2014 bottles, it was like a couple years later. Fun fact, I still have a 2014 in my cellar. Reason I haven't reviewed it? I mean, now it's 11 years later, so it's still probably decent, but it's probably not a true representation of what this beer should be, so I never thought like I should review that one for my first ever Kuhnhenn review, which is why I'm glad I picked these up from Halftime Beverage. Maybe I'll review that at some point down the line. Yeah, big like, almost like a big like rye kind of spiciness, even though there's not rye whiskey, but it has like a spicy character, probably from more like a peppery bourbon, but it has like a generic spiciness too. Does this smell as good as I remember it? I would say no, only because if I go back to the first time I had this in 2013 and then again in 14, you're talking about 11 to 12 years ago. And since then, I've had many old ales. I've had many big, just boisterous 15 to 20% barrel-aged beers of, in the barley wine style, stouts, old ales, the whole nine, strong ale. So this was kind of mind-blowing back then. Right now, don't get me wrong, this smells awesome. It smells amazing. But it's not blowing my socks off like it did. And honestly, I kind of expected that. But it smells awesome. There's almost a little like Coca-Cola vibe too. Very slight. Yeah, I want to get into it. So cheers, everybody. Thanks for hanging around for 2,500 reviews. Here's to hopefully many, many more. Cheers. Holy shit, that's boozy. Man, you know what? I got to be honest with you guys. I looked on Untappd, and I saw that this specific vintage. Hang on. Something's happening. Hang on, let me go back. Right as I was about to sing its praises, something just happened on the finish. I love the first 3/4 of the palate. But as it gets to the finish, there's a pretty, it's not substantial, but there's a noticeable like umami, like almost soy sauce thing going on, and a very slight tartness. I wonder if this is starting to turn. Like maybe a slow infection is happening. So I looked on Untappd for this vintage, and at the time that I'm recording this, I think it's a 3.84. Now, if you look at the overall check-ins for this one, I think this is like around a 4.35 or a 4.4, something like that. That's what I remember this beer being. I always give this beer like a 4.75. So to me, this was always top tier, right? So when I see a beer drop by like more than a half point, I'm like, what happened? I'm starting to kind of see it because I'll tell you right now, something's going on in the back of the palate. I don't know what it is. We're going to go body mouthfeel. I just love the first 3/4 of the palate. So good. Buying this one a bit thin at 13.5%. I imagine being in the barrel for over a year. I don't know how long they typically used to age this one for, but they specifically say this one has been aged for over a year. Kind of thinned it out. This is like lower side of full body. It's still fine, but it's just not as viscous. It doesn't have that like thick, syrupy, kind of like oily feeling. It's more of just like, all right, this has a nice thickness to it, but it's not over the top. So it probably makes it more drinkable, but because I typically would have one bottle of this and it's like a nightcap, I'd want it to be a little bit more luscious as far as the body goes. So it's a bit thin. The mouthfeel is nice. It's a little bit undercarbed, I would say. Yeah, I'd say this is like mild to moderately carbonated. It actually works though, so I think the mouthfeel is really nice, even if it isn't stylistically correct. So body's a bit thin, mouthfeel, little undercarb, but works. The taste. Listen, everything I was getting the nose carried over. Forefront, just a beautiful intertwining, cohesive mix of caramel, toffee, sweeter dark chocolate, raisin. There's almost a little bit of a, like I said, like a cowtail, bullseye, Werther's Original, Sugar Daddy, Sugar Baby, like that rich caramel really hits me at the forefront. There's also like a very dark kind of like toasted brown bread, like a pumpernickel or something. Then as it passes through, the vanilla comes in and the spirit just kind of hits and it's just like very intense. It's peppery bourbon, spicy bourbon. It accentuates the like caramel and like toffee vibes, the sweeter kind of rich decadent vibes to it. I get a nice oak tannin kind of dryness petering out on the finish, but the finish is where this one loses me a little bit. And that's because on the finish, there's a little bit of an umami soy sauce thing happening. Very slight, but it's noticeable only on the finish, along with a very slight tartness. So you get like a tart soy sauce. It's slightly off-putting to me, if I'm being honest with you. It won't impact me from drinking the rest of this, but it scares me from, like, whoever has 2024 vintages of this one, I'm not going to advocate you drink this instantly, But I don't know if this would last another 6 months, at least whatever's in my bottle. I do think it's a little bit harsh on the finish. That's the only thing stopping me from singing its praises and going absolutely nuts. 13.5%, it's boozy on the palate. It's a shock to the palate. It also big warm in my chest, doesn't hide the alcohol whatsoever, but that's fine. If I drink a beer that's 12+% nowadays and hides the alcohol, I kind of lose my shit. If it doesn't, it's expected. Let me go one more sip because rating-wise, I'm going to have to knock it for that finish for sure. Yeah, I'm going to have to knock it. It's a shame that I have to knock it because I just think the vast majority of the palate is phenomenal. It's just, if I keep on drinking this, I think by the time I finish this bottle, my score and my thoughts of this probably change immensely. It has already changed after about half a dozen sips. It's like, man, I love the flavors. It's a little bit kind of, there's almost like a burnt kind of malt character too on the finish in conjunction with that soy sauce and the slight tartness. So my opinion is this is definitely infected slightly, not fully, which is a bummer, but it is 6.5 months old. So, it happens. I would say, all things considered, this would be a 4.5 to a 4.6. Or I should say all things considered. If you take away the finish, this is like 4.5, 4.6. It has a complexity through and through. It's exactly how I remember it, maybe not as robust. But then you throw in that finish that has some off flavors, and you can, if it's not infected, there's definitely something off with the brewing process. One or two things. And I do think the longer this one would age, the more upset I'd probably be about it, or the more cautious I'd be about it. So I'm going to have to knock it down a decent amount. So as we speak right now with this beer, Kuhnhenn's Bourbon Barrel Aged, Fourth Dementia, aka 4D or 4D, the 2024 vintage. I'm going to have to knock this down like a half point. So I'm going to give this a high 4 out of 5. We'll go 4.05. Still a good score, still a good beer, still enjoyable. But that finish is definitely going to come into play if you wanted it to, drink one of these in a couple months or age another bottle. I don't know. Maybe I just got it slightly off bottle, but that's kind of where I'm at with this one. So kind of a bummer from that aspect, but you never do know, right? I'm just glad I kind of, re-reviewed it and retried it and whatnot, because I think everything here is very reminiscent of the first time I had this one, but the finish is the only thing that's a bit different. So, when you barrel age, things like that happen, especially if you're a smaller brewery like Kuhnhenn. They're not like pasteurizing, I'm sure, or to the level that like somebody like Goose Island is. So it is what it is. Price point availability, this was $12.49 a bottle at Halftime Beverage. Pricey, definitely over $1 an ounce, but I have no idea how you get Kuhnhenn other than Halftime got them. And I believe Tavor got some of their stuff. But outside of that, you got to be in Michigan. I've never seen them outside of the state. Certainly not, these beers. I take it back. We did get slight distribution of some of their beers here in Buffalo back in I think it was 2017, 2018 realm. Their aforementioned Drippa and a couple other beers, but never their special barrel aged beers. So I have no idea how to get them, and I don't know what the price point would be at the brewery. I think when I bought the 4-packs of this back in 2014, I'd say a 4-pack was like $25-$30. It was expensive even back then. So I can only imagine these are probably $40 a 4-pack or something crazy, but it is what it is. So this is what I will leave you with. If you've had this beer before, whether it's a prior vintage or the 2024 vintage like I had, what do you think about it? What do you think about Kuhnhenn? Do you even know about Kuhnhenn? Like I said, most people in Michigan knew about Kuhnhenn, especially if you were a craft beer nerd like myself. And I still think they do good stuff based on the cans I've had. However, this makes me cautious of the other 3 bottles I picked up because they were all released at the 2024 winter solstice. I hope none of the other beers have the same issue this one has with that little burnt kind of malt character, soy saucy, kind of slight tartness. My experience with those specific characteristics is usually the beer starting to turn from an infection. The beer has got infected, and those characteristics are starting to dominate as the infection continues to grow. It's not fully infected, thankfully, but it feels like it's the beginning of one. Might just be my bottle, I have no idea, but it's been in my darker beer fridge since I got it from Halftime Beverage, so probably unlikely. I have no idea. So anyway, let me know your experience. I think this was a perfect beer for this milestone review. It's unfortunate it wasn't as good as I remember it, but that's usually how it goes nowadays. So I apologize for the longer review, but milestone reviews are usually 15, 20 minutes long, and it is what it is. So yeah, the other thing I want to mention, because of that finish, this one is not overly like rich and decadent and sweet like the first 3/4 of the palate is, but it actually has a nice kind of firm oak tannin dryness, a mild to moderate bitterness, but it kind of gets enveloped by that slight, what I think is an infection starting. So at 13.5%, you might think it could be potentially super sweet, but it's not. It's not rich. It's not decadent to that point. So that's a good thing, but a bad thing is the finish definitely doesn't seem like it's correct. So anyway, I'm going to shut this one down. Like I said, thanks to each and every one of you. I appreciate it. The continued support kind of still blows my mind. So yeah, I'm going to shut this one down. And yeah, I got 3 more from Kuhnhenn that we'll review probably later on this year. Hopefully when I drink them, they're not infected. Shutting this one down. Appreciate it. To the next one. Cheers.